Customer service. Now, what does that even mean? Hi, I'm Mark from Valor XL. Thanks for joining me. Today, I'd like to talk to you about customer service. It's an expression we've all used a million times, but what does it really mean in the 21st century? And in your small business, how can you really provide service to your customers or your clients? Well, to answer that question, we need to go way back long before the advent of what we consider the modern customer service model. We need to go back before the internet, before AI, before smartphones, all the way back to the 1950s, to the quaint time of the courtesy desk. Maybe you've never heard that expression. It is still used in certain areas, but the original idea was in a retail establishment that you would have a specified area for people to come to if they had a complaint with a purchase they had made at the store. If something was defective, had a missing part, or was otherwise not suitable, the purchaser could bring it back to the courtesy desk, and the staff would work with them to resolve the issue. Depending on whatever the policy for that particular store was, that could mean a cash refund, or substituting with store credit, or a replacement of the defective item. And the courtesy desk idea kind of got ingrained, this idea of having one specific location, one person to deal with to get your problem taken care of. Fast forward a little bit, and then suddenly, as technology was increasing, a new door got opened through something called automatic call distributor. It was the precursor of what we know today with the modern call center, with voice recognition units and all of the different components that come into play. But in its original inception, what it enabled companies to do was now have an entire team of people dedicated towards solving problems. And essentially what the technology allowed the company to do was to enable those calls to go into a queue so that if all of the representatives on staff were already busy helping someone else, the caller would simply be put on hold, maybe with some pleasant wait music, and told that all calls will be answered in the order in which they are received. How many millions of times have you heard that? It was a great concept, but I think if you look at it, to some degree, it could be argued that even though it was solving some problems, it was actually creating additional problems. Because what you ended up with was a scenario now where anybody could contact the manufacturer, the distributor, whoever the company was, and because it was easy to contact them, people did so. It also made it really easy for people to complain. Now, the vast majority of inbound calls may have still been completely legitimate, but it also opened the door for people to simply try to see what they could get away with, to see if they could demand something from the company, and it introduced an entirely new layer into the customer service idea. And the more people contacted them, the more staff needed to be hired to address the calls, and it kind of created a vicious cycle. As the situation developed and technology continued to improve, new things opened up in the realm of customer service. Now with voice recognition units, you could simply say whatever it was you needed and you would automatically be connected to the appropriate extension. But something else happened as well. The culture of the call center got developed, and call centers became, for the people who worked there, real pressure cookers. If you've never worked in a call center, you don't know what you're missing. I have, and there are few things more stressful than being on the phone all day long, wearing a headset, receiving inbound calls, and knowing that the split second you finished a call, bing, 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 the next call will come surging through, and you don't have any choice. You have to take it right then and there. For the customer service representative, this can be incredibly frustrating because they suddenly have to change gears from whatever problem they were currently working on to whatever new issue is being presented to them by the current caller. As a result, call centers tend to have a really high turnover rate for employees. Now, this is problematic for the company itself because they're constantly having to replace and train staff, but it's also a problem for the customer or the client who is calling in for assistance. Because there is a high turnover rate, that means that there are always newer employees, and the chances of getting some tenured staff member who has years of experience are less and less. As a result, you may be dealing with somebody who really doesn't know what they're talking about or is relying 100% on reading from reference materials while you're talking to them. It is a really unfortunate circumstance because the technology was developed to make the situation better, but then the technology brought some negatives with it as well. It's been completely intensified over the last several years with the advent of chatbots, and maybe even on your own business website, you have some sort of an integrated mechanism for people to send instant messages to you. Maybe you have an info@email box where people can send questions, replies, or comments. Now, as great as all of this stuff is, it's also a little bit of an issue for us as the business because the more means of communication that we give to the people we serve, the more responsibility and obligation we're putting on ourselves to monitor it and to respond in a timely and professional fashion. And if you have a small staff to begin with, that can really introduce an entirely new level of stress and anxiety. Whatever kind of approach you utilize for customer service in your business, you need to be very discerning. Suppose you ran a business that sold a particular product and somebody came in, made a purchase, bought the item, and you watched them leave. You looked out the window and saw them go across the parking lot to their car, open the trunk, and recklessly, carelessly slam the item in. 10 minutes later, they show back up at your store, demanding a full refund, furious that you sold them a broken item. Well, you really didn't. The responsibility was on them. So that's kind of a sticky situation. I'm saying that simply from the perspective that you need to use a little bit of discretion in how you interact with your customer. And although the customer may always be right, is the client always right? See, I think that customers and clients fall into two different categories. A customer is somebody who purchases services or goods that are pretty clearly defined and cut and dried. They're not specific to that individual. Anyone could come into your establishment and for the same amount of money receive the same item or the same service. But with a client, it's an entirely different scenario. In my opinion, if you term someone a client, that means it's someone who is coming to you because they're looking for a service that is beyond their skill set. They want to do something, and in and of their own power, they can't do it, so they're looking to you for help. Now, that carries with it an important responsibility for you to foster a real relationship with the client. But it also puts a responsibility on the client to recognize you as being a subject matter expert. They're seeking you out to help them, so they need to trust you. As a result, as you work with them, everything needs to be framed in the context of you being the one who provides the wisdom and the guidance. Now, it definitely needs to be a collaborative relationship. They should certainly have input and even some creative suggestion, but ultimately, they need to defer to your judgment. And if the client makes a decision that you know is fundamentally wrong or could be destructive to the process you're trying to follow, they need to recognize that you are operating in their best interest. I honestly think it would be better to tell a client, I'm not the person for you to work with, rather than have the business owner compromise their own standards of quality or integrity. It's important because we think we're serving people by simply acquiescing to whatever they demand. There might be times that holds true, but there are also many occasions where you need to be very focused and fixed on your own vision and mission for your business. That will provide consistency in the way you interact with all of your clients or customers, and it really provides a solid model for true customer service. I hope what we talked about today gave you some perspective. Customer service is something that we should be very intentional and purposeful about, but we need to make sure that we're operating at parameters that work for the customer or client as well as for us. If this was beneficial for you, would you please give this episode a like? And in the comments below, let me know your experiences with customer service, both on the receiving end and also as a provider. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe to Valor Excel. We publish new content on a regular basis, all of it specifically tailored for small businesses, organizations, and nonprofits to really help them thrive. If you don't feel like you're thriving right now, you probably aren't. And in your business or your nonprofit or your organization, if you aren't actively growing and developing, then you're stagnating, and that never leads anywhere good. I'd like to give you a free tool that can help you to get a clearer perspective on where you are and where you need to be. If you click on the link in the description below this video, you can download a PDF called Taking Your Organization's Temperature. It features 30 statements about the health of your organization. It'll really give you a clear perspective on where you are today and where you want to be tomorrow. I really appreciate you joining me today. Please come back for the next installment. Remember, at Valor Excel, we're committed to helping you do smart work. Thanks again. I'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye for now.